Hello again and welcome to another edition of our videos about items from our collection. So yesterday Linda spoke to you about religion and how even that was catered for in the rules and regulation of the Lighthouse Service. So today I'm going to link into that by talking about one of my favourite ledger books in the service, and that was the General Order book. So these books, there was one for every lighthouse around Scotland, and when a new General Order was received from Edinburgh, it was put into the book for everyone to see. In some lighthouses they had to sign the book or even sign the order to say they had read it. So in most cases in the General Order book it focuses on discipline. So the idea is if someone does something wrong anywhere in the service and they get dismissed or fined, it will be put into a General Order and sent around all the lighthouses so the keepers can see it, and they will therefore know what they can expect if they do the same thing. So it's a bit sinister really in some aspects. So the books were used from 1844 up to the 1990s, so they were quite long lasting. I know some keepers, they enjoyed reading the books in the stations, learning about what all their predecessors in the lighthouse had done wrong, because some of the entries they can be quite amusing. So today I'm going to talk about one very interesting entry which actually spans over 3 orders. It's a very famous case of the keepers from Sumburgh Head. So in many occasions in this book you have problems with keepers falling out, but in 1871 the General Order book shows that it's sometimes not the best idea to be best of friends with your principal or assistant. So back in 1871 the light at Sumburgh Head went out. The assistant at the time was supposed to be in charge. His name was Duncan Macpherson. And of course the principal and the assistant, they then had to write to Edinburgh to explain the light had gone out, which they duly did. The principal keeper explained, well, the light went out, the assistant can't remember when it happened, and he can't remember for how long for. So that's not very useful for the commissioners. So then they went to interview the assistant, and he says, oh no, I wasn't sleeping, you understand. I was doing something else, attending to other duties at the lighthouse, and the flame was blown out twice in the course of the night, and it was re-established as soon as possible. It happened at about midnight. So of course the commissioner's suspicions are raised immediately because the principal's saying one thing, very vague, and the assistant has all the details after all. But because the commissioners didn't have the proof, they were quite fair, they didn't dismiss Macpherson for his crime, or alleged crime. Instead, they just fined him 1 guinea for breaking another regulation for failing to bring the principal to the light room to assess the evidence, which he should have done. He didn't do that. The commissioner's worst fears were realised only a month later, when Mr. Macpherson was accused of doing the same thing 2 more times in the course of that month. So the commissioners had no doubt that he was he was probably guilty, so he was dismissed outright for his failures. It transpired during those investigations that the principal keeper at Sumburgh Head, he had a deal with the assistant whereby they both promised each other they wouldn't tell on the other if the other fell asleep. When the commissioners learned of this, they were furious, and the principal keeper, Mr. Lawrence Ferrier, he was dismissed after 23 years service. The commissioners were so outraged that they actually say in the General Order, it's a sad termination to 23 years service, but the length of his service only exaggerates his fault. In intimating this occurrence to the lightkeepers, the commissioners trust that they may never again be called upon to decide upon such a conspiracy, and that the lightkeepers will see that length of service will never suffice to shield any of them if neglecting to perform their duty. So even though he was a long-serving keeper, that was no excuse for allowing this conspiracy to go on. The principal keeper is in charge of the station. He must maintain discipline. The commissioners, though, they did later take leniency on Mr. Ferrier. In August, he was reinstated to the service upon a petition from himself. But the commissioners were still furious. So although he got his job back on account of his age, he was told he would never be promoted again, and as soon as he was eligible to retire, he must do so. So they made a good example of Mr. Ferrier, and he spent the next 1.5 years working as an assistant keeper at Buchan Ness Lighthouse. So the General Order Book is very important because it shows just how seriously the regulations were taken by the commissioners and what could go wrong if you fall foul of the rules or if you disrespect the commissioners. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for listening.